Now, the thick haze of smoke from the Canadian wildfires continues to shroud over New York. A record-breaking smog has also covered other cities along the U.S. East Coast. Air pollution warnings have been issued in northern United States, while thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes in Canada. Flights have been delayed and people have been advised to stay at home. And our next report gets you the details.
Eerie scenes. Seems like an apocalypse, something right out of a doomsday movie. But that's how things are in the US. The thick pollution cast an eerie yellow glow over the Big Apple skyscrapers, delayed flights and forced postponement of sporting events. Smoke from Canadian wildfires drifted south, blanketing cities in thick yellow haze. New York's famous skyline, usually visible for miles, appeared to vanish in an otherworldly veil of smoke, which some residents said made them feel unwell.
You can't even see Statue of Liberty today, and usually it's bright and clear. It's generated a kind of a cough all day long. I quit smoking 50 years ago, but it's kind of a cough that I would have when I was smoked.
Schools up and down the East Coast called off outdoor activities, including sports, field trips and recesses. More than 100 million people across the northeastern United States and extending west to Chicago and south to Atlanta were under pollution warnings.
Check in on your neighbors, check in on your friends and your family. Take precautions, especially if you have health conditions.
Scientists have warned that rising temperatures are increasing the risk of extreme weather, including the hot, dry spells that often fan wildfires. The White House says the situation is an alarming example of the ways in which the climate crisis is disturbing our lives, echoed by New York's mayor.
As I said this morning, this is climate change in action, and we must continue to draw down emissions, improve air quality, and build resiliency.
The smoke billowed over the U.S. border from Canada, where hundreds of forest fires have scorched 3.8 million hectares of land. It has also forced over 120,000 people from their homes in an unusually early and intense start to the wildfire season.
People across the country are being affected. We're seeing vulnerable people at risk, outdoor events cancelled, kids having to be kept inside at recess.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau describes this wildfire season as the country's worst ever.
Again, I don't think we can let our guard down because I don't know what the future weather means for all these hot spots and these dry conditions.
It's mostly just a hopeless feeling. You don't know where it's going to stop or if you get it stopped or what, right?
Canadian farmers have suffered property damage and are concerned about a resumption of the fires with the new rise in temperatures over the weekend. An unusually early and intense start to the wildfire season has set Canada on track for its worst ever year of fire destruction, as warm and dry conditions are expected to persist for months. These images are a grim reminder of how climate change is worsening the scale of wildfires worldwide. Rising temperatures lead to longer and more destructive fire seasons. The changes in temperature, precipitation, sea level rise and extreme weather events, and a wake-up call that the time for climate action is now. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what life at the moment is like in New York, we're being joined in by our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, this is almost an unprecedented sort of a headline and scenes that are emerging out of New York. A city that takes pride as the economic nerve center of the United States, one of the richest cities in the world. The headline there is that the people of New York are breathing in air that is arguably one of the most polluted, with the smog that's now seemed to have engulfed the city. Give us a sense of what it is like to live in New York at this moment.
Yeah, you described it perfectly. Really, what we're breathing in right now is something that, usually when you get a warning like this, it's not noticeable to an extent where every individual thinks like whether a building next to them is on fire or, as one person described it, burnt toast. Today, it is noticeably better than yesterday, considering the fact that New York was the most polluted city in the world yesterday. So today, as you can see behind me, there is still a little bit of fog hovering over the city, but is not as bad as it was yesterday. Regardless, those measures that authorities have told us to take are still in place. Children, many of them did not go to school today. A lot of schools were closed. They went remote. On the other hand, recess, outdoor activities like sporting activities and whatnot, they are still being canceled as well. But while we did get the brunt of it, we are going to continue to feel this terrible weather until the end of the week. However, now cities like Washington, D.C., as moving forward, Ohio, and then even as south as the South Carolinas are really going to feel that brunt that we felt yesterday and the day before. But as the Canadian Prime Minister said, it's very unpredictable. For example, right now, while it doesn't seem as bad as it was last night, again, this evening or maybe in the afternoon, again, because of the wind, then the air quality probably may or may not get worse. So, it's something that we've never seen before.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, the fact that climate change has been talked about for several years now. It was always said that it was the poorest of the nations who will bear the brunt of climate change the most. But here we have the United States of America and New York, the economic nerve center of the United States, bearing the brunt of a crisis that's unfolding in another nation. Now, we are looking at a situation where forest fires are likely to get more intense and worse in the coming years. So is New York perhaps putting in place a plan for the future to ensure that somehow the air quality index does not plummet to the levels that it has done this year because of a forest fire in Canada?
Well, New York is one of those states that's always taking measures regarding climate change and eliminating fossil fuel and whatnot. It's actually at the forefront. But it's interesting just how unpredictable these fires have been, as you said, considering the fact that the United States wants to spearhead and has spearheaded clean energy and wants to move in that direction, and Canada as well, really talking about climate 24/7 and trying to move around ways to really combat climate change. But we see that something like this happens again. So I think the main question is, first of all, not talk about putting the brunt on lower income countries and developing countries, and seeing that, weather patterns ultimately do change, whether you're in New York or, for example, you're somewhere else.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us and getting us all those details there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.